Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is by far the most important Star Wars film by Disney and Lucasfilm, as it wraps the entire Skywalker saga that started back in 1977 by George Lucas. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one aspect of Episode 9 that a lot of fans are very excited about is, of course, exactly how J.J. Abrams is going to introduce all these different Force powers, all the different types of lore surrounding the Jedi, the Sith, and the Force in general, and, well, just how the characters are going to interact with each other on the big screen. The fact that the trio is finally getting together in this movie is also yet another good step in the right direction here by Disney and Lucasfilm to really have the main characters have a lot of screen time together on the big screen. Now, with that being said, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film, and when it all comes down to one of the big plans by Disney and Lucasfilm that is rather unfortunate, this is where things begin to also get very interesting as well. Now, specifically, what's really intriguing about this is that it's described that during the reshoots of The Rise of Skywalker for the months of August, September, and this month of October, involved the adjustments of the second and third acts of the movie that were said to be due to some of the changes of the script and last-minute changes due to additional approved scenes for JJ. It's explained that during this scene and during this process, around 40% of scenes that were directed by George Lucas were cut from the final cut of the film, though the remaining percentage of Lucas and his scenes are said to still be intact with the final version of the film. It said that George Lucas directed many scenes where big sequences that surrounded the characters of Rey and Kylo Ren, as well as Luke Skywalker and Palpatine, and that one of the scenes that George Lucas directed involved the sequence in which Luke Skywalker's Force Ghost confronted Palpatine and even exchanged dialogue with him, where both Mark Hamill and Ian McDiarmid were on set together. It said that this was changed into last-minute approved scenes for J.J. Abrams by Disney and Lucasfilm, where additionally it's explained that one of the other scenes that George directed that had been cut from the final cut of the movie were some of the flash fight sequences between both Rey and Kylo Ren that he worked on within the third act of the film. It's described that Disney did this to introduce an additional saber duel on the world of Pasaana. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, though George Lucas directed scenes are still going to be a part of this movie, a lot of them have actually been cut from the final version of the movie, and that is actually very unfortunate because we do know that a lot of reshoots have been happening. It's been a very controversial story that a lot of people have been talking about. You guys may recall that this all really started heavily back in August, where a lot of major changes were being made to Palpatine scenes, Luke Skywalker scenes, and even Rey and Kylo segments. And a lot of those scenes had to do with George Lucas and his work. Around 30% of his scenes have been cut from the actual movie for Episode 9 by Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, one of them actually included both Mark Hamill and Ian as Luke and Palpatine on set over in his throne room, exchanging vital pieces of dialogue. Now, that particular moment was cut from the movie fully, where both Luke and Palpatine would meet once again and actually have a confrontation. Now, in case you guys did not know this, this most likely also has to do with the other major segment that was also cut from the film, where Matt Smith was actually set to play a villain in the movie that would actually be connected to the reprising of the role of Palpatine. Now, what's really interesting about this is that you can really see the changes, the big adjustments to the second and third acts of the movie, where a lot of it had to do with Palpatine scenes and how that kind of created a butterfly effect of how many other scenes had to be changed due to that big adjustment by Disney and Lucasfilm. And in the process, a lot of scenes that were directed and written by George Lucas were cut from the final cut of the movie. The other one of which had to do with George Lucas and how he directed many of the flash fight sequences that were also cut from The Rise of Skywalker, which is very unfortunate because a lot of fans have always been looking forward to, a lot of those different saber duels that were going to be directed by George Lucas. Mind you, though, that one of them is actually still directed by George in the upcoming film, but many of the flash fight sequences that George directed and actually wrote were actually cut from the final version of the movie. Now, that's the thing with Disney and Lucasfilm. There's a lot of inconsistency when it comes to the making of the Star Wars films. We've seen a prime example of this with Solo: A Star Wars Story, where they had to fire the original directors and bring Ron Howard on board, where Ron literally had to redo 80% of the movie. So, at least it's not as bad as that, but 30% of George Lucas directed scenes have been cut from the final version of the movie. It also reminds me of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, where they had to literally redo a large segment of the very ending of the film. In fact, around 20% of the ending of Rogue One, a Star Wars story was all redone due to, a lot of reshoots and changes here and there. So, not just that, it's all about the firings and how a lot of creatives have stepped down from their involvement in these Star Wars projects. That also, creates a lot of inconsistency within Disney and Lucasfilm. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.